There are types of strength that don't need to shout to be heard, and constructions that time cannot tear down. At a moment in history when the ancient world seemed to crumble in noise and confusion, a man discovered that the safest fortress is not made of walls, but of silence and rhythm. Benedict of Nursia did not seek to found an empire, but in seeking peace within a cave, he ended up teaching an entire civilization how to breathe again. The peace he found 1,500 years ago is not a dusty relic. It is a living secret, capable of ordering the chaos that, at times, we feel within ourselves today. This story is about how to build an inner refuge that nothing can shake. But to understand this peace, we must first slow down. Before we begin this journey through the mountains of Italy, allow yourself a sacred moment of pause. Wherever you are right now, whether lying in the comfort of your bedroom, sitting in a soft armchair, or simply seeking refuge in the middle of a busy day, know that this space was created for you. Adjust your body in whatever way feels most welcoming. Feel the weight of your shoulders descend, releasing accumulated tensions. Breathe deeply. Draw the air in slowly, feeling it fill your lungs in a renewing way, and release it slowly, letting go along with it any worry, any mental noise, any hurry. Breathe once more. Once, twice. Feel the rhythm of your own heart slow down, coming into tune with a different time, a time that is not marked by the hands of a clock, but by the rising and setting of the sun, by the sound of wind in the trees, by the silence of ancient stones. Let the thoughts of the day drift gently away, like leaves carried by a tranquil stream. You are safe. You are at peace. You are exactly where you need to be right now. Our story begins not in silence, but in noise. We are in the year 495, or perhaps a little later. Young Benedict, born in the province of Nursia, walks through the paved streets of Rome. The air of the eternal city carries the weight of centuries of history, but also the dust of a fragmenting empire. Imagine the colors of ancient Rome, the texture of peeling walls, the dirty white of togas, the gleam of the Mediterranean sun reflected in the waters of the Tiber River. But what most marks Benedict's presence there is not what he sees, but what he hears. Rome is a strange combination of noises. Merchants shout their prices in vulgar Latin, cartwheels with iron rims bang against the irregular stones of the road. Empty philosophical discussions echo in the rhetoric schools. For a young man with a sensitive and profound soul, this constant noise is not merely auditory, it is a spiritual noise. The moral decay of the city, the frantic pursuit of ephemeral pleasures, all of this creates an internal dissonance that disturbs him. He feels on his skin the friction of a world that has lost its center. He seeks something the city cannot offer. In the classrooms, while teachers discourse on eloquence and laws, Benedict observes his classmates. He sees brilliant young men being swallowed by the city's spiral of vices, losing the light in their eyes in exchange for quick pleasures. The moment of his conversion does not happen with a lightning bolt, but with the closing of a book. Looking at the scrolls before him, he perceives a frightening truth, that human wisdom was merely polished noise. It taught how to speak well, but not how to live well. A sacred fear touched his heart. If he continued there, learning the ways of the world, he would end up falling into the same abyss as his companions. There, in the middle of a class, or walking along the banks of the Tiber, he makes his choice. He decides to abandon the knowledge of the world so not to lose the knowledge of God. He chooses to be in Rome's eyes ignorant, but in heaven's eyes wise. He seeks something the city cannot offer. He yearns for a different texture in life, something more solid, fresher, purer. In his heart, a desire begins to sprout that perhaps you also know, the desire to turn off the external noise in order to hear one's own soul. Without grand dramatic farewells, he makes a silent decision. He abandons literary studies, leaves behind his noble family's inheritance, and departs the city. He walks towards the hills, towards the east. With each step that takes him away from the gates of Rome, the air becomes cleaner. The smell of dust and crowds is replaced by the aroma of damp earth, of cypresses and wild pines. The road beneath his feet changes from man-worked stone to packed earth and the grass of rural trails. He does not go alone at first. His nurse, a woman who served him with maternal dedication, accompanies him to the small locality of Infide. It is there, in a simple village, that the first sign that grace accompanies him occurs. Tradition tells us about a domestic utensil, a clay sieve used to clean wheat, which his nurse had borrowed and which by accident broke into two pieces. Imagine the scene, the afternoon light entering through a window of a rustic house, the smell of baking bread, and the genuine sadness of that woman before the broken object. Benedict, moved by a silent compassion, takes the pieces in his hands. He does not speak magic words, he simply withdraws into prayer. The touch of cold ceramic in his hands joins with the warmth of his faith. When he arises, the sieve is whole again, without a mark of cracking. It is a small, domestic, almost shy miracle. There are no thunders or blinding lights, just the restoration of order and wholeness. It is a foreshadowing of what Benedict's life would be, taking what is broken, whether an object, a soul, or civilization itself, and making it through prayer and care whole again. But even Infide, with its community life, is still too noisy for the calling Benedict feels. The fame of the miracle begins to attract attention, and he flees human admiration as one flees a storm. He seeks the desert, not the sandy desert of Egypt, but the green and rocky desert of the Italian mountains. He continues to Subiaco. The name of the place means below the lake. There, the cold and transparent waters of the Anio River formed artificial lakes created in the time of Emperor Nero. The landscape is of a severe and imposing beauty. Limestone rock walls rise vertically toward the sky, covered by dense vegetation of oaks and thorny bushes. The air here is thin, icy, cutting. Benedict finds a grotto carved into the wall of a precipice. Access is difficult, almost impossible. It is a place where the rock seems to embrace the void. Upon entering the grotto, his eyes take time to adjust to the dimness. The floor is bare stone, irregular. The ceiling is low and damp. The smell is of minerals and moss. The only constant sound is the wind whistling outside, and occasionally the cry of a falcon echoing in the valley. In this place, which would become known as the Sacro Specco, the sacred grotto, Benedict will live for 3 years. Imagine the physical sensation of this life, the cold of winter penetrating the rough garments of skins he came to wear, the hardness of the floor where he slept, the extreme simplicity of the food. He was completely isolated from the world of men, but totally connected with the rhythm of creation. He was not, however, helpless. A monk from a nearby monastery, named Romanus, discovered his refuge. Romanus, respecting Benedict's desire for solitude, did not visit him to converse. He merely, on certain days, lowered a basket with bread tied to a long rope from the top of the cliff to the mouth of the grotto. To signal that the bread was arriving, Romanus attached a small bell to the rope. Imagine the sound of that bell. In the absolute silence of the mountain, that metallic tinkling was Benedict's only human connection. It was the sound of providence. The bread, probably hard and dry, had the taste of charity. Benedict ate looking out at the valley, feeling gratitude fill the emptiness of his stomach. That solitude was not empty, it was inhabited. It was a solitude peopled by the presence. There were moments of struggle, of course. The human mind, when deprived of distractions, tends to project its own fears and desires. Tradition tells us that on a summer day, while the stifling heat made the air tremble, the memory of a woman Benedict had seen in Rome returned to his mind with overwhelming force. Imagination brought colors, touches, and sensations that disturbed his peace. The desire to abandon the grotto and return to the world pulsed in his veins. But Benedict knew the geography of his own soul. Instead of fleeing, he faced the sensation. He left the grotto and saw, growing among the stones, thickets of nettles and thorns. In a gesture of physical determination, he removed his tunic and threw himself onto the thorny vegetation. The tactile sensation was immediate and intense, the burning on his skin, the scratches, the shock of harsh contact. But this physical pain, paradoxically, brought profound relief. It anchored Benedict in the present, dissipating the fantasies of the mind. The burning of the skin extinguished the fire of memory. When he stood up, dressed again, a deep calm settled in. He had transformed passion into peace, using harsh nature itself as medicine. The light of Benedict's holiness, even hidden in the rock, could not be contained forever. Shepherds from the region, rough men accustomed to living among goats and mountains, discovered his hermit. At first, seeing him dressed in skins, they thought he was some kind of beast. But upon hearing his voice, a voice that, after so much silence, must have sounded deep, measured, and laden with a gentle authority, they realized they were before a man of God. Fame spread. Monks from a nearby monastery in Vicovaro came looking for him. Their abbot had died, and they, impressed with Benedict's austerity, insisted that he become their superior. Benedict initially refused. He looked at those men and, with his sharpened intuition, perceived that their rhythm was different from his. "Your customs in no way harmonize with mine," he warned, but the insistence was so great that in the end he yielded. The change from the solitary grotto to the communal monastery was a shock of atmospheres. In Vicovaro, Benedict tried to establish order, not a tyrannical order, but the sacred rhythm he had discovered in the mountain. He wanted prayer to have set times, silence to be respected in the corridors, work to be done with reverence. For the monks of that place, accustomed to a relaxed life without rules, Benedict's presence became unbearable. Light troubles those who prefer dimness. Benedict's gentle discipline seemed to them a crushing weight. Murmurs began to arise in the corners of the refectory, hostile glances in the corridors. The tension in the air became palpable, dense before a storm. Despite the inconsistency of their monkly life, they desired a practical solution. They decided then to eliminate the problem. During a meal, they presented Benedict with a glass pitcher of wine. The liquid was dark, perhaps reddish, apparently harmless, but mixed with the wine, there was a deadly poison. The room was silent. All eyes were fixed at the abbot. Benedict, seated at the head of the wooden table, maintained his serene expression. He did not suspect malice, for his heart was pure. As was his custom, he raised his right hand to bless the drink before taking it. He made the sign of the cross. At the exact instant his hand traced the sacred sign in the air, the glass pitcher shattered. The sound of breaking glass was sharp and sudden, echoing through the stone walls of the refectory like a cry. The wine spilled over the table, staining the wood like blood, exhaling perhaps an acrid and unnatural smell. Benedict understood immediately. He looked at the glass fragments, then raised his eyes to the monks. His face showed no anger, no fear, no condemnation, only a tranquil sadness and a sovereign acceptance. "May Almighty God forgive you, brothers," he said, with the calm voice of one speaking to mischievous children. "Why did you wish to do this to me? Did I not tell you before that our customs did not harmonize?" He arose without haste. He adjusted his tunic, and with the same peace with which he had arrived, withdrew. He returned to his beloved solitude in Subiaco, leaving behind the monastery of Vicovaro not as a fugitive, but as someone returning to his true home. The lesson remained engraved in history. True peace is an armor that not even poison can pierce. Back in Subiaco, Benedict could no longer remain alone. Disciples began to arrive in great numbers, thirsting to learn that way of peace. The wild landscape of the Anio Valley began to change. Where before there was only rock and brush, small constructions began to appear. Benedict founded 12 small monasteries, each with 12 monks and a superior. The chaos of nature was being ordered by liturgy and work. New sounds were now heard in the valley: the beating of axes cutting wood, the sound of stones being laid one upon another, the singing of psalms in unison that rose like incense at dawn and dusk. But Benedict's final destination was not that valley. Guided by divine intuition and the need for a larger space for his vision, he departed again, this time to the south. His destination, Monte Cassino. Monte Cassino is an isolated mountain rising more than 500 meters high, dominating the fertile valley around it. The climb is steep. The air up there is different, vaster, more luminous. When Benedict reached the summit, he found ancient ruins. There was a temple dedicated to Apollo, surrounded by sacred groves where local peasants still rendered pagan worship. It was a place of ancient, dark energies. Benedict did not see an obstacle there, but a foundation. With his disciples, he began to transform the space. They tore down the idols, cut down the sacred groves, and in place of Apollo's temple, built an oratory dedicated to Saint Martin. Where the pagan altar had been, they erected a chapel to Saint John the Baptist. It was here, at the top of this mountain, under the intense blue sky of central Italy, that Benedict wrote his masterpiece, The Rule. Not a book of complex theories, but a practical manual of life. Ora et labora, pray and work. Imagine the rhythm that was established in Monte Cassino. Life became a sacred dance between time and eternity. The day began while still in the darkness of night with the ringing of the bell for vigils. The monks walked through silent corridors, their sandals softly brushing the stone floor. In the choir, voices united in a grave, monotonous, and hypnotic psalmody that calmed the mind and elevated the spirit. Then came dawn. The golden light of the rising sun bathed the inner courtyards, warming the cold stones. It was the hour of manual work. Some monks went to the garden to feel the damp earth in their hands, to cultivate vegetables and herbs. Others went to the scriptorium, where the smell of ink and parchment filled the air, and the soft sound of quills scratching paper preserved ancient wisdom. Still others worked in the kitchen, among the aroma of soups and breads. Everything had its time. There was a time to speak and a time to be silent, a time to read and a time to serve. Nothing was done in haste. Benedict's rule taught finding God in the pots of the kitchen as much as at the church altar. He taught to listen with the ear of the heart. The atmosphere of Monte Cassino was one of welcoming moderation. Benedict, now a mature man with white hair and a penetrating gaze, governed as a loving father, not as a general. He knew that each monk had his limits. He provided in the rule that the elderly and children should have different portions of food, that the sick should be treated as if they were Christ himself. The harshness of Subiaco's rock had been transformed into the solid and human architecture of Cassino. Among the episodes that marked Benedict's final years, one stands out for its tenderness and humanity. Benedict had a twin sister, Scholastica. She too had consecrated herself to God since childhood and lived in a nearby monastery at the foot of the mountain, for the rule did not permit women to enter the enclosure, nor for him to spend the night outside his cell. Their last meeting is one of the most beautiful scenes in Christian hagiography. Imagine a day of clear sky, perhaps in spring. The two siblings, now old, seated facing each other. The afternoon light enters through the window, illuminating their faces marked by time and asceticism. They converse about the joys of heavenly life. Their voices are gentle, filled with an intimacy that only spiritual twin souls know. They speak the same language. The hours pass without them noticing. The sun sets, and the shadows of night begin to envelop the house. They dine together, sharing bread and wine, and the conversation continues, sweet and profound. Benedict, always faithful to his rule and schedule, realizes it is time to depart. He rises and says, "Enough, sister, I must return to the monastery." Scholastica, however, feels in her heart that this may be their last meeting. She joins her hands and asks, "Please, my brother, do not leave me tonight. Let us continue conversing until morning about the joys of heaven." Benedict, rigid in his observance, responds, "What do you say, sister? In no way can I spend the night outside my cell." The sky outside was clear, serene, starlit, not a cloud in sight. Scholastica, hearing her brother's refusal, bows her head over her hands clasped on the table and weeps silently. She plunges into deep prayer, a supplication that needs no words, only the force of love. The moment she raised her head from the table, the impossible happened. The sky, previously starlit, suddenly darkened. Thunder roared, making the walls of the small house vibrate. Lightning cut through the darkness, and a torrential rain poured upon the earth. The sound of the rain was deafening, beating on the roof, transforming the dirt paths into mud. Benedict goes to the door, looks at the storm, and realizes it is impossible to leave. He turns to his sister, surprised and perhaps even a little annoyed by such an intervention. "May Almighty God forgive you, sister. What have you done?" Scholastica, with a serene smile and shining eyes, responds, "I asked you, and you did not hear me. I asked my Lord, and he heard me. Now, if you can, leave, bid me farewell, and return to your monastery." Benedict, defeated by the miracle of love, sits down again, and thus they spent the entire night awake. But it was not a night of anguish, it was a vigil of sacred communion. While the storm raged outside, within that house, absolute peace reigned. They spoke about eternity until the gray light of dawn began to dissolve the darkness and the rain ceased. 3 days later, already back in his cell at Monte Cassino, Benedict looked out the window and saw a white dove flying toward heaven. In his spirit, he knew it was Scholastica's soul departing for the light they had contemplated together that stormy night. Benedict's life was approaching its earthly end, but his spiritual vision expanded ever more. One night, while everyone slept, Benedict stood by the window of his tower, keeping watch in prayer. The night was dark and silent. Suddenly, a light shone in the darkness. It was not an ordinary light like that of a torch or the sun. It was a supernatural light that dispelled all the darkness of the night. And in that light, says St. Gregory, the whole world was brought before his eyes as if gathered in a single ray of sunlight. Imagine that experience. It is not that the world had diminished, but Benedict's soul had dilated so much in God that it could contain the entire reality. He saw in a glimpse of total clarity the unity of all things. The mountains, the rivers, the cities, the pains and joys of humanity, everything was there, bathed in a luminous and comprehensible peace. It was the apex of his contemplative journey. The man who had fled the world to a dark grotto now embraced the entire universe in a ray of light. Shortly after this vision, Benedict announced to his disciples the day of his death. He did not suddenly fall ill, he simply began to prepare, like someone packing bags for a desired journey. 6 days before departing, he asked them to open his sepulchre. Soon a gentle fever took hold of his body, consuming his strength day after day. On the 6th day, feeling the moment had come, he asked his disciples to carry him to the oratory. The final scene is of impressive dignity. Benedict did not die lying down, passive. In the oratory, supported by the strong arms of his monks, he stood upright. Even weak, his spirit remained vertical. There, among the smell of incense and the light of candles, he received the body and blood of the Lord. Supporting his frail limbs on the hands of his disciples, he raised his own hands to heaven, and thus, standing in a final gesture of prayer and offering, he exhaled his last breath. There was no agony, only a smooth transition. Benedict's final breath merged with the silence of the oratory, a silence he had so loved and cultivated. It is told that at that moment, 2 monks, one who was in his cell and another distant from there, had the same vision. They saw a path carpeted and illuminated by countless lights which went from Benedict's cell toward the east, ascending to heaven. A man of venerable aspect and brilliant garments asked them, "Do you know what path this is?" They said they did not, and the voice answered, "This is the path by which Benedict, the beloved of the Lord, ascends to heaven." And so the story of Benedict of Nursia quiets, but does not end. The silence he cultivated in the mountains of Italy spread throughout the world. Where there was chaos, his monasteries brought order. Where there was war, they brought the pax, the Benedictine peace. Perhaps today in your life there are noises similar to those of ancient Rome, incessant notifications, hurries, demands, anxieties. The life of Saint Benedict reminds us that we do not need to flee to a physical cave to find peace. We can build within ourselves our own Monte Cassino. We can create a simple rule for our days, a moment to work with dedication, a moment to rest with gratitude, a moment for silence. We can learn to look at the nettles of our difficulties not as enemies, but as opportunities for healing. We can learn to maintain serenity even when the chalice breaks before us. There is a hidden dignity in your daily gestures. In washing the dishes, in organizing your desk, in walking to work, you can live the ora et labora. Each action done with attention and love is a silent prayer. Your heart can be the sacred grotto where even in the midst of the world's noise, an inviolable silence dwells. Carry this image with you. Benedict standing, sustained by love, looking toward the light. May that vertical and serene strength dwell in you as well. If this story brought a little silence and peace to your day, consider subscribing to the Holy Rest channel. Here we seek to be like Romanus's bell, a gentle reminder that there is food for the soul, descending from on high, waiting for you. Leave your like if you felt this calm. It is a simple gesture that helps this message of serenity reach other hearts that need rest. Until the next story, Saint Benedict, pray for us. May the Pax Benedictina remain with you.